Hi, this is Lisa
and Jason
from the Designated Quizzers podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Is Crocodile Dundee a comedy classic or simply a product of its era? Let's find out. Episode 362, Crocodile Dundee Movie Review. I'm Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. This week, Derek and I are going to take a look at Crocodile Dundee. We're going back in time. But before we get to our movie this week, Derek, what is new in your world of pop culture, my friend?
Hey, Chris. Had a chance to watch a few things and actually had a chance to get out to the movie theater this week.
Again, you were on a
Yeah,
roll.
well, it's summer and we've got some coupons, so we're trying to get through all of those. So, okay, so let me jump right in. First of all, I'm going to start with what we watched online or like on the streamers. And I'm going to start with a classic that was on TV the other night, and we just turned it on and went, yeah, this is fine, and then watched the whole thing. The Sting.
Oh, wow.
Robert Redford and Paul Newman. And turned it on. I hadn't actually watched it start to finish in a long time, but man, I forgot just how good this movie is. And my wife and I were talking, we're like, it's always funny to watch a movie, like The Sting was from what, like the late 60s, I believe?
Oh, 1973, I think it was.
Okay, it was late 60s, early 70s, but it's obviously a period movie that takes place
back in the 1800s or something like that, I think it was.
Oh, no, I think it's like in the 20s or something.
Maybe, yeah, it was like in the Prohibition.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we were talking about how it's interesting to watch a movie that the movie itself is 50 years old, but because it was made to be a period piece, it actually felt a little more timeless. Mm-hmm. And it's always interesting to see that. It didn't didn't feel like a 70s movie, other than the fact that it's just not in high definition. But I mean, that's just the technology. You can't do anything about that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we watched The Sting. It was great. We don't have to go into great detail, but I just wanted to throw that out. Then we had a chance to watch a new offering. This is the latest one from Pixar, from Disney Pixar. It was out in theaters recently. It's just recently come on to Disney Plus, and it's called Hoppers. Have you seen this, heard of this? Have your kids asked you to bring them to see it or anything?
No. I'm assuming it's about rabbits?
Yeah, it's about animals, and it's the premise is basically it's sort of like Avatar, where the scientists have figured out how to put their brain into a robot that looks like the animals, and when they do that, they can then talk to the animals and stuff. And of course, in the world of Disney, all the animals can talk to other animals, but people can't talk to any of the animals. And I mean, it was a fun little Disney movie. It's Pixar. I mean, Pixar knows how to make good movies, and this one was pretty decent. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I would definitely recommend it. If you've got Disney Plus, you're not paying anything extra, sit down, give it 90 minutes. I think you'll enjoy it. It was quite good. And it's got a very positive message too, like so many good Disney movies often do. So it's definitely fun for the whole family. And if you've got kids and they like animals, obviously the animation of the animals is fun to watch as well. So so we watched Hoppers. Then I had a chance to watch a mini series on Amazon Prime this week. It's 6 50-minute episodes, so 6 episodes, each of them just a little under an hour. It was on Amazon Prime. It's a British series, takes place in London, and it's called Steal, and it's about a high-end theft at a banking firm, like a digital theft. And it stars Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones. She played Sansa Stark, and she's the main actor in this one. Honestly, I didn't really recognize too many people in the cast, but because it's all British, I was talking to a friend of mine who had at least watched the trailer and went like, oh yeah, those are all people you would know if you are familiar with British TV. So it's 6 episodes. The first episode is like a 10 out of 10. It's all about the heist. Like it just starts with the criminals getting ready and bam, the heist happens. And the first episode is the heist. And then the next 5 episodes are sort of the follow-up. The police come in, the feds come in, they investigate. You try and find out, how did they pull this off? Where were, what worked the way it was supposed to and what didn't? Are there any, how did they get their information? Did they bribe people? Were there insiders? And yeah, I felt sort of episodes 2 and 3 stumbled a little bit. I didn't really know where it was going, and I didn't feel it was really getting there fast enough, but then it really picked up steam. And by the end, I was very glad that I watched it all the way through. So you can binge this one in a weekend. It's 6 episodes. They're all under an hour. It's called Steel. It's on Amazon. So check that one out. And then finally, we had a chance to go to the movie theater just today to take in the new Steven Spielberg film that's called Disclosure Day. Now, Chris, I know you probably haven't been to the theater in a while, but were you aware Steven Spielberg had a new movie yet?
I was, because my son had texted me a little while ago. He's like, Dad, Steven Spielberg has a new movie coming out. You know what? I've actually heard it's not very good. So I'm interested to your take on it.
So I liked it, but I didn't love it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that kept running through my mind, and you and I talk about this on our show all the time, is this movie like a rewatchable movie? Is it the kind of movie you would want to revisit? Maybe not right away, but 2 or 3 years from now, it shows up on your streamer or on cable. Would it be like, oh my God, this movie was so good, let's just sit down and watch it again? And honestly, as much as I did enjoy the movie, I just didn't feel it was a kind of movie that I like. While I'm watching it, I was thinking, I'm an hour in. While I am interested, I don't think this is the kind of one that I'm going to just be like itching to get back to. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'm a half an hour into Raiders the very first time, and I'm like, I can't wait to come back and watch this tomorrow. Like, some movies are just like that. Yep. Now again,
a lot of Spielberg's movies are like that. Yeah.
And a lot of Spielberg's movies are like that. Now, this is a deliberately slower paced drama kind of movie. So, I mean, Indiana Jones is not the same kind of movie as Disclosure Day. And if you think it's going to be, you will be disappointed. It's not like that. But it definitely has a lot of the Steven Spielberg hallmarks. The storytelling is great. The character development is great. The performances are really good. There's a lot to like about this. I don't want to really give too much away. I'll just sort of say it's about aliens. Hence the disclosure part is like about people finding out about aliens and stuff. Are they real? Are they not? Is this real? Is this fake? That's a big part of the story. I won't ruin it. You got to go see it. But
a common thing to explore in Spielberg films.
Well, again, yes, very much so. Mm-hmm. But I kind of felt it was a little bit too long. Like, it ran about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I thought, I'm thinking like it's probably about 20 to 30 minutes longer than pardon me. Who am I to question Steven Spielberg? But I just kind of felt after I walked out, if it had been 20 minutes shorter, I think I would have liked it more. I didn't feel that, sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, they could have cut out this scene. They could have cut out this scene. This scene dragged. I didn't feel there was any of that, but I do think it could have done with some editing. But again, you're Steven Spielberg. No one's walking up to him and saying, hey, Stevie, I got some suggestions for you. Why don't you cut this out of your movie? And he turns to them and goes, I directed Schindler's List and Jurassic Park in the same year. Who are you to tell me what to do?
But you can still have opinions on it. That's what we do.
For sure.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to come off sounding negative. Mm-hmm. I did enjoy this movie. And if you're a fan of Spielberg and you're a fan of like Close Encounters and AI and like some of E.T., like sort of his ones that deal with aliens, you will probably enjoy this. It's got his signature sort of storytelling style to it. But if you're going in thinking it's going to be this super fast-paced action movie, yeah, it's absolutely not. And I don't think the trailers make it out to be that. But yeah, this movie won't be for everyone. I think a lot of people are going to come out and going like, what the hell did I just watch? But no, I liked it. So anyway, sort of a middle of the road review for me on Disclosure Day. And that was it for me. I got quite a bit of things. How about you, Chris? Anything
I got
good?
something for you. Okay, so as a Gen Xer that I am growing up, every day after school I would come home and we would always put on TV and watch Gilligan's Island. Now, it was on in reruns, because it was on in reruns right through the 70s and into the 80s. And so when I was in school, like in the early 80s, I'd get home and watch Gilligan's Island. And another thing that I've mentioned before on this podcast that I really am getting into is the streaming service Tubi. I just love Tubi. Yes. It's awesome. It's right up my alley. So I was on Tubi recently and I went in there and I discovered they have every episode of Gilligan's Island on there. I was like, oh my gosh. So I decided I had to watch. So I went in just randomly and picked one. And it was an episode where they find this totem pole on the island and Gilligan's head is on top of it, like a wooden cutout but it looks just like Gilligan. And so then they try to figure this all out. And I was like, oh man, it was nostalgic. But it got me thinking. And two things I want to mention about this. Number one, Remember when we did, I think it was just last week, we did our top 5 favorite movie trilogies? I'd like it to add a new entry into that. And I offer you 1978's Rescue from Gilligan's Island, 1979's The Castaways on Gilligan's Island, and then finishing out the trilogy from 1981, The Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island. I don't know if you ever remember that one. It was pretty good. So this guy goes back, he takes the Harlem Globetrotters, they're going to play a game against all these robots. So, and then the second thing I want to mention, I've mentioned this before.
Wait, hold on. Let me stop
Yep.
you. So when you mentioned Gilligan's Island, I thought, I know exactly where Chris is going with this, because earlier this week on the Silver Screens Classic Movie Channel was Rescue from Gilligan's Island from 1978. And I literally have it on my PVR. I'm like, I have to record this. And my wife saw it today and she's like, Gilligan's Island, what the hell is this? I go, it's the one where they get rescued from the island. She's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. She's like, we gotta watch this.
Oh yeah, they go back to civilization and then they're like, this is kind of boring. We got to go back on another trip, and then just get shipwrecked there again. So it's awesome. But the other thing I want to mention, and I remember mentioning this maybe a couple of years ago on the podcast. So with Gen Xers, it was always a Gen X thing that you would always have the argument, Ginger or Marianne, and you had to pick. Like, were you more of like a Ginger, or did you rather prefer Marianne? Was she more your kind of thing? But I got to tell you, as a 50-year-old man looking back, there was a viable third option on that island, Derek. Anyway, as an old guy, I also got this.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
So, Derek, the other day, my wife yells downstairs to me. She's like, do you ever get a stabbing pain in your back, like someone's sticking a voodoo doll of you? I'm like, no. And she says, how about now?
Oh, that's pretty good, man.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm glad you like it.
I thought she was sticking the pin in your butt because you keep telling me how you've got this pain in your ass.
I was the only man left on the planet after the Holocaust, eh?
Because you're probably drunk.
That's why I just spent all my time looking for beer.
Save me one of those beers.
No way, eh?
Experience and maturity.
I gotta take a leak so bad I can taste it.
I don't know how they got him to do it.
You drive. There's a lot of cops around.
It was a different time.
No, I've had enough beer.
Some of the things from the early 80s, it's hard to relate to them now.
Oh, come on. That's some funny right there.
Okay, so this week we're going to take a look at Crocodile Dundee. Just some general information about the film. It was released in 1986, ran for 97 minutes. It came from Australia, directed by Peter Feynman and written by Paul Hogan, John Cornell, and Ken Shady. Quick plot summary, if you don't remember. There's a journalist, Sue Charlton. She's a New York journalist, and she travels to Australia to interview this legendary crocodile hunter, Mick Dundee, and then, of course, brings him back to New York, where he struggles to adapt to American culture. It's the ultimate fish out of water story, really. And it really connected with audiences. I think because of the fish out of water thing, the lead performance by Paul Hogan was just quite charming. And I think the movie celebrates individuality, and there's a lot of cross-cultural humor, but it was never mean or cynical. That was the other thing I think that made it really popular. So it really, really connected with audiences. So what was your take on watching Crocodile Dundee after all these years? I'm assuming you haven't seen it recently. I don't think it's something.
Well, probably more recently than you think.
Oh,
so
really?
I definitely saw this in the theater.
Yep.
I remember seeing
too.
it as a kid and loving it. I probably saw it. I'll be honest, probably saw it in the theater more than once. Absolutely saw it on home video more than once. Don't think I ever owned Crocodile Dundee, but it wouldn't surprise me if I came across a box of old videos and there was in there. And this is one of those ones that they tend to show on cable a lot. And my wife and I, whenever we flick the channels and we see it's on, we just sort of jump in wherever the movie is. And we have a great time with this movie every time we watch it. Of course, we usually jump in halfway, so we don't get to see the Australia parts that often. We usually just get the last 45 minutes in New York. And it's probably only been a couple of years since. It's probably been less than a year since I've seen part of it, and probably only been 2 or 3 years since I've seen it in its entirety. I like this movie a lot, and I think it really holds up in a lot of ways. There's a few hiccups, which we'll talk about. And I really agree with what you said about the fish out of water is not necessarily played for laughs in a mean-spirited way. It's that sort of message around like different people of different cultures do things differently, say things differently, perceive things differently. And those things can be interpreted in many ways. And this movie always seems to interpret it in the most positive way, so that nobody seems to really be getting angry at somebody else for a cultural misunderstanding. And it's refreshing to see that, because I think if this kind of a movie was made today, it would be hard to convince a younger audience that everybody would be okay with some of the things that were said and done in this movie. That in today's lens, you're more likely to have someone get angry and violent and press charges than you would to just sort of laugh it off and see just how different we can be.
Going back to the fish out of water thing for a second, too, I think one of the things I like about this movie, it's a double fish out of water story. Because like you said, the first part of the movie, they're in Australia, and she's the fish out of water. She's from New York City. All these things happen to her, like the alligator almost gets her and all this sort of thing. And then she brings him back to New York. So now it's a double-sided fish out of water story. It's him out of place. I haven't seen this very often in movies that I can recall. Continental Divide did this as well back in 81. But yeah, it doesn't happen a lot where you get the double fish out of water story. So I think it makes it's almost like you get 2 for 1, in this movie. So I think it's pretty good. I want to talk a little bit about the cast. We got to start with Paul Hogan. So when he got started, he actually was a rigger on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And then he became famous doing Australian TV appearances in the 70s. He was a star of the Paul Hogan Show. And he also became known pretty much worldwide through these Australian tourism campaign that he did on TV. And then he won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a motion picture comedy or musical for this movie, Crocodile Dundee. And he also was nominated for an Academy Award for this movie for Best Original Screenplay. So
yeah, I had no idea that he was he had a writing credit on this and that he got nominated for an Oscar. Like, that blew me away.
Pretty amazing. But really, outside of this, didn't do a whole lot else. Lightning Jack in 94, Flipper in 96, Almost an Angel in 1990. He did the sequel to this movie. And then the second sequel, Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. I almost think that this is one of the best examples of somebody who was just perfectly matched for a role, a particular role.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then just pigeonholed into it,
Yeah, but I mean, also when and we'll talk more about this, but like when this movie came out, the North America got Australian fever. Like, it was like the British invasion of the Beatles bringing the music from Britain to America at that right time, at the right place. This movie coming out in America in the time, just bam, it just opened up this door. And I remember him being like, he had all these sponsorship deals and stuff. He did a lot of appearances. I remember he was a spokesperson for Foster's Beer from Australia. Like, so while he clearly didn't have a lot outside of this Crocodile Dundee role that made him famous, I think he did very well financially.
I worked at the beer store in the late 80s. So for those of you not familiar, in Ontario, Canada, we have a place called the beer store where you go to buy beer, obviously. And this was before they had it in corner stores or anything like that. And Foster's was just flying off the shelves back in the late 80s because of this movie and because he became the spokesperson for it. And it, like, people just they could not get enough of Australia. Like, you're right. It became this massive cultural phenomenon, all because of Crocodile Dundee. Like, I don't think people realize just quite how big it was unless you were there. Okay, we also want to talk about Linda Kozlowski. So she plays Sue Charlton. She was actually a classically trained actress and did a lot of Broadway and stuff like that. She was in the television adaptation of Death of a Salesman with Dustin Hoffman as well.
Wow.
And she was in both sequels, and she married Paul Hogan after they met on this film. So
nice.
And then eventually she just left acting. She was like, I'm not getting good enough roles, so I'm out. That's it. But she's pretty much just known for this movie, I think, by most audiences.
Yeah, I think for most people, yeah.
And then it really was just the two of them that were in this. There was John Milon played Walter Riley, and he's very well known in Australia, but not known outside of the country very much. Did a lot of beer commercials in Australia too. And then David Gulpil was an Indigenous Australian actor, and probably one of the most famous ones ever. But again, not really known outside of Australia, even with his success in this. So really, when they think of this movie and the cast, it's just the two of them, pretty much, right?
Yeah, for the majority of the movie, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the director,
and that's I think why the fish out of water story works so well is because you're mainly following just these two.
Just two
There's not this long list of supporting characters that you have to also keep track of. Yes, there are some supporting characters, but they're window dressing for the bigger story.
So I mentioned the director was Peter Feynman, another guy didn't do a whole lot else, wasn't really known. He was established in Australian television and variety shows and things like that. I think the way that he approached directing this movie was perfect because he understood that Hogan was the personality and was the film. And he just allowed Hogan to just drive the film, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just sort of a simplistic, you know, sort of character study. And rather than like real flashy filmmaking, he just let the character go. And I think that's why it really, really worked. Because the movie feels very relaxed and natural when I'm watching it.
It does. I really felt the same way. Yeah, like it didn't feel forced. And whether that's good acting or whether that's just him playing himself and like again, if he's got a writing credit, then he helped steer the story. But in either way, it worked. It was good.
I'm surprised it was actually got a lot of critical acclaim for the writing because to me, the script is not all that strong. Like I think the whole point of this movie is the audience spends time enjoying Mick Dundee rather than the plot or any, you know, thing that's going on with the story. That's for sure. So I definitely believe, and I'm sure you do too, that this movie was successful just because of Hogan's charisma rather than the directing or the writing or anything like that. So, and like I say, the fish out of water story, really, really great. I like when they get back to New York because, well, first of all, when they're in Australia, this guy's like Superman. Like, you know, it's like he just dominates nature and everything else. And then when he gets back to New York, you realize like they really present him as unsophisticated. It's such a sort of a dichotomy. It's such a contrast that goes on between the two that I think is really, really good. But again, a lot of it's driven, like it's not mean-spirited in any way at all. He gets back there, like I say, he's unsophisticated, but he has an appeal to him. It's almost like he's honest and just comfortable with himself, you know, and just very direct. And I feel like that's what made audiences relate to this guy, or they responded to him because there was no social pretension in any way with him.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But there are some themes in this movie that I think are important. Masculinity is a theme in this film.
Big time.
And the thing I think I liked about it the most, rewatching it, maybe never picked it up when I was, you know, younger as a kid watching this movie. He's confident, but generally he's not like aggressive. You know what I mean? Like he has a different persona about him in regard to masculinity that was sort of against the grain of the things that we saw coming out of America at the same time. At the time in films, American masculinity was Rambo, you know, Rocky, Schwarzenegger. Mick Dundee was different, equally confident, but not aggressive like those other. He wasn't physically dominant. Instead, he was almost like just resourceful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if the idea, I was going to ask you this because you're up on more modern things. Has the idea of this rugged outdoorsman endured? Has it changed since 1986? What do you think?
Well, I think it's you've got it splintering in different directions, and in some cases it's become so much worse where you have that like super ultra masculine alpha dude bro, where it's like, you know, and you hear them say things like, I want to go back to traditional values. It's like, no, you want to be the man in charge of everything, in charge of everyone who is less than you, and you want to be at the top, like, you know, and that's the worst direction that could have gone in. But I do think one of the better directions you see is men who are more confident in themselves, willing to accept differences in other people, whether it be other men, women, whatever, you know, not necessarily having to be the tallest guy with the best hair, the best clothes, the biggest muscles, the best job, the most money. I mean, yeah, sure. A lot of people want a lot of those things, but if you don't have all those things, it doesn't make you less of a man. And I think that you have a lot of people that, you know, are confident enough in themselves that they don't need all those things to make them feel reassured and more masculine. That's just my opinion.
I agree. In addition to being a fish out of water story, it is also a bit of a romantic comedy. And
a little bit.
I like how, like, I mean, this is pretty typical in movies that opposites attract, and it's certainly going on here. I feel this movie's a little different though. Like it's actually kind of surprisingly sweet and sincere, this movie. Like whereas a lot of other 80s comedies were not, even some of the romantic comedies. So I feel that one, is different. Apparently they based him on a real person. I did some research on this and I found Rod Ansell was this guy that became famous because he survived alone in the wilderness of Australia. And multiple sources have cited him as being the inspiration for Mick Dundee. But I think Dundee really is a combination of a bunch of us Australian archetypes.
I mean, sure, I'll give you that. I mean, I don't know what you would really have as an Australian archetype. I would think, if anything, this is the archetype on which all more modern pop culture archetypes have been based. Because to me, this is sort of the first. Like, I'm sure there were definitely others before this, but I think this one, when it came on the scene, was so big and so memorable and received with so much positivity that any sort of newer adaptations or perspectives are going to constantly be compared back to this one.
I guess the archetypes I think of when the Australians are like friendly, but resourceful, need to be resourceful on this, unique sort of island, that it is. And, but like they speak the same language as us pretty much, with some like a little couple of quirks, and definitely not American in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
Like really different. So, and I just think it's all rolled up into one here and presented, with him. I think when they made this, nobody expected it to be a hit, let alone a global worldwide hit that it was. I think the producers especially, thought it would just be a small, maybe even a regional type movie, that was popular in Australia. Not a lot of money was put into it. Not a lot of money was put into the marketing campaign even early on, until they started to realize they had a hit on their hands, and then they started running with it. The filmmakers had to rely more on creativity in this case than budget, because they didn't have a lot of money to make it. That was for sure. So they even the filming locations.
But it doesn't feel, sorry, I was just about the budget though. It doesn't feel low budget. Like when I hear someone say, we made it a shoestring budget, it's like, it's not going to look slick. You're going to see a lot of camera tricks where it's like everything takes place in 2 rooms. And it's like, they clearly, like, this was big parts of this were shot in Australia. Like they obviously had some money, and then the rest was shot in New York.
Northern Territory, and it looked good too. You're right. The cinematography
looked great. The cinematography is fantastic. Yeah, I kept thinking that as I'm watching this. I'm like, wow, this really looks good.
Even when they get to New York too, I thought some of the locations there, it really looked good. Yeah, it looked slick as a film. That's for sure. It looked like a big budget movie. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the scenes from this movie. The crocodile attack, I want to start with. When the crocodile grabs Linda Kozlowski's with a bag chain around her neck or whatever. The scene is certainly more famous for her butt. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
I think I remember at the time seeing it, I was like, oh my gosh. I think I was maybe 16 years old when I first saw that. I was like, holy smokes. I still remember that. So that was pretty, when the buffalo encounter too, I think is a pretty good scene, because it just shows that he's like, he can sort of almost like interact with the animals, like have some sort of control over this. Like, the one thing though, I have a question for you. As I was watching this again this time, he does all this stuff, right? There seems to be this underpinning sort of current in this movie, and maybe it was just me, but I was picking up little things that he was maybe almost a little bit of a fraud.
Yeah.
Did you pick that? I never, as a kid, like when I watched this, I thought, oh my God, this guy's great. Look, he can move his fingers and the water buffalo goes to sleep. He can take care of the crocodiles. He can do everything. This guy's Superman. He's got the biggest knife in the world and all this. But this time when I was like, I feel almost like he's kind of duping her a little bit. He's not doing all the things that you think he's doing. He's kind of duping her.
Well, I think he's definitely hamming it up for this tourist, right? Like that. I love the scene where they get out of the boat and he looks at his buddy's watch, and then he goes next to her, looks at the sun, and goes, it's about 20 after 2. We should get moving. And she's like, oh my God. It's like, to me, that's more of a parlor trick to sensationalize the base abilities that he clearly has.
Yeah, like little things like that made me think that he's being maybe a little fraudulent here. I don't know. So I picked up on that. Love it when he first gets to New York and starts talking to people on the street. I just thought that was great. The look on the guy. So he's like, yeah, I'll see you around probably. The guy just looks.
But I like how his naivete comes through right at the beginning. He says, "Oh, New York has got 7 million people, or however many million people it had in '86." And he goes, "Must be the friendliest place in the world." And you're like, "Oh boy, are you in for it?" But then, anytime he has interactions with people, his charm and his charisma come across, and everyone just immediately accepts that, oh, this guy's genuine. He's not just trying to like pull one over on me, and he sort of charms the pants off of everyone he meets. And that's part of the fun of this movie, is that everyone who meets him immediately seems to like him.
Yeah. And how can you not? He's very, very charismatic. And even in those total fish out of water situations, he still has this confidence about him. And it really comes through in probably the most famous scene in the movie with the knife scene.
Yeah.
And, I apparently when he's like, that's not a knife. This is a knife. Probably one of the most quoted movie lines of the 80s. And it was partly improvised too, that scene. The writers said, okay, we're going to do this scene where Mick Dundee gets rid of this mugger with a bigger blade. But the exact delivery and like even the shredding of the jacket and everything, where a lot of that was ad-libbed by Paul Hogan, in that.
I believe it. Yeah.
And I think there was even Peter Feynman had called cut, and Hogan just kept playing with the actor, and he just kept rolling and improvising and doing all these other things that ended up, making it into the film. So, I think that was probably my favorite scene in the movie, probably the most famous scene in the movie. That's for sure. Do you have a favorite scene in the film? Is it the knife scene, or what did you like?
I really like the scene at the end in the subway.
Oh, it's so good.
Where she's like, she yells, she's like, "Hey, I need to get in touch with the guy in the hat." And then it's the black guy with the red headband, and then it's the construction worker with the orange.
Is he not one of the most instantly likable people you've ever seen on film?
What do you want? Yeah,
he's so likable.
You're not gonna marry Richard. Like, yeah, no.
And he's yelling it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy was great.
I love you. I love you. She loves you. Yeah. Oh, we just love that. My wife and I, every time that comes on. And what was really funny is, again, because we see the end of that movie all the time. Like when we're like, oh my God, it's getting close to that subway scene at the end. And so years ago, we're watching Grey's Anatomy. And one of the characters, one of the doctors on the show, Richard Weber, he's like the head of the hospital. And he proposes to the other character, this woman that ends up, they end up becoming husband and wife on the show. But she has these doubts. And so that the whole episode was about her. Is she going to accept his proposal? And then at one point, my wife just turns to me and goes, "Should not go marry Richard." Man, we just died laughing. Like, when is that line ever going to be relevant in any other context? Right. And it was just so perfect. No, that's definitely my favorite. Well, up there among my favorites, just that whole end scene in the subway. Yeah.
I like when he first gets to New York too, and he goes into the bathroom and he can't figure out what the bidet is.
Yeah.
And he's trying to figure it out and he's pushing it. And then finally he yells out the window, "It's for washing your backside."
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny. Also, the scene in the party really highlights a lot of the cultural differences, between him and New York City.
So let me ask you about that. So this, again, I watched this with my wife this week, and she said to me, she goes, okay, he comes to New York and the reporter is like bringing him around to different people, her life, introducing him to her friends, stuff. Then she brings him to this party and basically just lets him roam, and like she ditches him, right? It's like he's just there to enjoy the party. And she's like, and then we're like, why is he at this party of all places? Like, why did she bring him here? I get it if she's like, I want to bring you to this party, and then she's with him the whole time to sort of gauge his reaction so she can write about it in her story. But she brings him to this party and then just buggers off and does her own thing. And while it is an interesting scene and it's funny and he does some interesting stuff and he meets some zany characters and stuff, he does the thing with the cocaine and all the rest of that. But yeah, we were sort of like, that's a good point. Like what was up with that? Was there maybe a line of dialogue we missed already, or is it just it's in there as a funny bit?
Maybe. I think it goes back to what I said before about it was a conscious decision, whether it was in the script or the director's decision, to just let this guy go free in scenes and let him drive the scenes. There was no real plot reason for him. And plus, she was still with that Richard guy or whatever at this point, or it was kind of breaking off or whatever. So she's kind of there and she knows everybody there. She's doing her thing, and it was just an opportunity to get him to this party just so we could let him just kind of go and just put him in all these different situations. So I think it was just more of it wasn't a plot device. It was just more like just to let this character, just let him sort of chew up the scene.
Yeah,
and do that.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
my guess. So
yeah.
All right, I want to take a look at this.
Box Office Mojo.
Let's go back in time to 1986, Derek. Any guesses what the number one film at the box office was in 1986? Take a guess.
Wasn't it Top Gun?
It was Top Gun. Yes, 176.
And then this one was in the top 5, wasn't it? It did very well.
Crocodile Dundee was number 2.
There you go. Bingo.
Gun. Yep. And in third place was The Karate Kid Part 2, Back to School number 4, and Aliens was number 5. And then rounding
all those
out
movies in the theater, all 5 of them.
It was a good year for films. Rounding out the top 10 at number 6, The Color Purple, then Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, Ruthless People at 8, Out of Africa 9, and then rounding out the top 10, should have been higher, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
This may not come as a surprise to you. I did not see all 5 of those movies in the theater.
Yeah, well, Out of Africa.
Out of Africa and Color Purple, I have still not seen. The other 3 I did see in the theater.
Some other notable ones as I go down the list. Stand By Me was 13th and at 52 million. Pretty in Pink was 22nd. Soul Man was 36. $27 million.
That did not age well.
How did that many people go to see Soul Man? That movie was terrible, and it did not age well. It was not appropriate in 1986. It was C. Thomas Howell doing blackface, right? Going back to college or something. It was terrible.
You cannot find that on the streamers anyway. They were just talking about that on one of my other podcasts. They're like, we should review that. And they're like, if you can find it, we'll review it. But it is not available. And they're like, yeah, with good reason.
Yeah, that movie needed to go away. One Crazy Summer, 65th. I
love that movie.
I love it too. It's finished all the way down 65th, $13 million only. And Big Trouble in Little China, only $11 million, 72nd place. Big bomb. So yeah, going back to this film, the budget was between $8 and $9 million, and it grossed over $300 million worldwide.
Nice.
Just crazy. I think the reason why it was popular all over the world too is that it's such an easy to understand premise.
Yes.
No matter what culture you are, you can just understand it. And it was huge word of mouth. Like it absolutely was, And I don't think we can underestimate the cultural impact. We kind of touched base on it a bit, but the Australian identity just spread all over the world because of this movie. He became the face of Australia. He really did.
Absolutely. Yep.
And there's positive and negative effects to that. Obviously, tourism increased, but I think it also simplified Australia's sort of really diverse culture. Just kind of into like the single image.
I'm sure there's a lot of people in Australia at the time that while they appreciated the fact that it highlighted their country, there's probably a lot of people who went, that's not reflective of everybody. Like, like anything, you're going to have your haters and you're going to have the people that love it. And I think I would assume that more people probably were grateful for the positivity it brought than they were for being angry that it maybe was a little one-noted, but who knows?
It was a huge success at the time, obviously, but I'm curious if it still has influenced things in pop culture after that, or even to this day. I think it definitely had an influence on like knife jokes and things like that. And especially that stereotype of Australians. We were talking about this before, but another thing that comes to mind with Australians is like that whole no worries kind of mindset, So I think it also, you could make the argument too, I think, that this movie helped prove that international films could become blockbusters. Because when you think of blockbusters, American films, right? But this proved that international films could also be blockbusters, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Yeah, but this is the kind of movie where, because half of it does take place in New York, right. I don't, like if someone said make a list of your favorite international movies, like I wouldn't even consider putting this on the list. But you're absolutely right. Half the movie was shot in Australia.
Mm-hmm. And had a lot of Australian actors in it, and an Australian director, and Australian, filmmakers behind it. Did you see the sequels, Crocodile Dundee 2 and Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles?
Nope. I've probably seen Crocodile Dundee 1 25 times or more. definitely more. I have not seen either of the other two sequels ever.
So I
honestly don't feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah, you're not missing a lot. I saw Crocodile Dundee 2. I saw it on cable. It was pretty good. I remember it's more of they go back to Australia. And then this one was different because it was more action oriented. Like there was all this things going on, like with this crime boss, and he was trying to take it down. It was pretty successful financially. Not as charming as the first movie, obviously. Right. And then Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. Big gap. There was like 13 years after the second film came out. This one came out not very good. Very negative reviews. And I remember it was actually co-written by one of my my previous fantasy baseball cohort, like people that I knew in the industry. Matthew Berry from ESPN co-wrote Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. One of the first things that he did. So yeah, so we should maybe also then take a look at whether or not this...
Did it age like wine or milk?
Looking back on this now, what are some things you think that work, that still work? I think the first thing that jumps out to me is his charisma.
Oh, absolutely agree with that. Yeah. And there was one more thing I want to talk about, but this is a perfect place to put it.
Sure.
One of the things that really stood out to me this time around, and we already touched on this a little bit, was the fact that the character of Crocodile Dundee didn't necessarily have preconceptions about the world around him. He seemed very confident with what he knew and what he believes, but he also seemed like he was very open-minded. If
and
not
optimistic
naive, just
too, wasn't he?
Optimistic.
He was
that's a good one.
yeah.
So there's, I found the quote here when we were talking about. So there's a scene sort of right at the end when the two of them are in Australia doing their walkabout. They're at that giant lake, and he says, "Oh no, this is limestone, so the water. There's no crocs in this water. It's safe to swim in." And they're doing that, and she asks him something about. Were you afraid of dying? Something. So here he says, I was afraid of dying. Nah, I read the Bible once. God and Jesus and all them apostles, they were all fishermen just like me. Yep. Straight to heaven for Mick Dundee. Yep. Me and God, we'd be mates. And I started to think about it. I'm like, when you think of it sort of in that context of he's a simple man, just living his life. And, it's very reflective of the bigger lesson of the Bible of, love your neighbors, be friendly, help people. And like he embodies all of the best qualities of what you hope people are taking away from their Bible. He doesn't specifically ever come out and say he's a preacher or that his way is better than the next way. But just that idea that he's a genuinely good person really, really stuck. Like it jumped out to me a little more this time than it has in the past. Now, obviously, he was out there poaching gators. We see that. So he's not a saint. We're not saying that.
Right.
But that I felt really sort of jumped out at me this time around. I think that's something that really aged well and will continue to age well with this movie.
I also thought the whole culture clash thing aged well. And like I said, I really think just kind of the fact that it was kind of, there was a lot of warmth to this movie. Again, it wasn't mean-spirited anyway. And I think that held up really well. A few things that felt dated. I thought there was some gender-related humor in there.
Yeah.
There was the whole thing with the Sheila and all that I thought, oh, maybe this didn't age all that well. The fact that the one scene is basically centered around her butt, too. Certain depictions of the culture and identity, I think, as well. I don't think modern audiences would like as much. But, I mean, those are just picking nits at this point. Like, it's...
Yeah.
Overall,
I think
it's really good.
Going back to the positive again, one of the things is we noticed there was a lot of scenes, like probably 5 or 6 at least, where, especially when he was in New York, he would say something to someone and it might take them a second to sort of absorb, like, what did this person just say to me? But then take it in the most positive way and often laugh it off or something of that nature. And all I just kept thinking was, if they made this today, that person would punch him in the face. And that's not to say that the person in the 80s wouldn't have been within their rights to do that as well. But just the kind of movie they're making, the way that they portray this guy is, it's almost like a certain amount of innocence and naivete. Like, he's not saying this to be mean. It's not mean-spirited. It's based on his experience and understanding. And it's not that it's necessarily correct, but the movie sort of is not playing it in a way that is inappropriate. In fact, they're almost playing it in the most, well, not almost, they are playing it in the most positive way. And I felt that really aged well with this movie.
Yeah. So just going back to something you said before, I have a question for you. When you were because we were talking about being an Australian movie, and you're like, well, it's in New York. Do you think it's an Australian movie, an American movie, or just a truly international film? What would you think it is?
I see it as an American movie simply because of its success in America and the fact that half the movie takes place in New York City.
Yeah, I guess that's fair enough. All right. Well, if you like this movie, there might be some other ones you might like.
Netflix. More like this.
So if you enjoyed Crocodile Dundee, anything else come to mind that you'd want to recommend? Like I mentioned before, I think Continental Divide is a good one because, again, it has that double-sided fish out of water story that goes on here. Another one that came to mind for some reason, Romancing the Stone feels like it's kind of similar to this in terms of this adventure, romance, fish out of water, kind of all tied up into one. So that one came to mind. Anything else that you think of?
The only thing that's sort of coming to mind, again, sticking with this 80s idea, because we do so many movies in the 80s, is Beverly Hills Cop has this a little bit, right? Where you have the wisecracking, fast-talking Detroit City Metro Police cop who comes to Beverly Hills and is completely different than the police force there, brings a new attitude, a new perspective. You got the whole black cop in a white neighborhood thing. So there's a little bit of that. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily draw a solid line between Crocodile Dundee and Beverly Hills Cop, but I think there's enough there. And the fact that there's so much comedy in both movies, I think you have that parallel.
For a strict fish out of water movie from like the late 80s, early 90s, Mr. Baseball was one that comes to mind.
With Tom Selleck. Yeah, I haven't seen that in forever.
He goes to Japan and gets all this culture shock of being there. And I also think City Slickers kind of fits this a little bit in terms of fish out of water in an unknown environment. There's humor in it. There's also a lot of themes of masculinity in that film too, I think. So those are other ones that, that I think come to mind. Overall, though, for this film, I feel like it's more than just a comedy. It was a cultural event.
Absolutely.
It really was. And I think you almost had to be there at the time to understand, just how so few films, I think, have completely defined a nation's image, in the eyes of international audiences like this one did. You can look at it as a bit of a time capsule from the 80s or just a timeless sort of fish out of water movie, but I think this movie really holds up. I really do.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
It was quite good watching it this time around. Would you give it a rating out of 10 for me?
I mean, I'm going to be a little biased just because I really like this movie. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
I would give it an 8 out of 10. That was the first thing I thought of. I thought it was really, really good too. So yeah, definitely enjoyed it. That's for sure. This was a good one. It was a good pick. Hard to believe we've done 300 and some shows and we're just getting around to this one now, but it was a good one. I really enjoyed it. So on that note, what do you say that we have some
fun with Caveman?
All right, my man. It is over to you this week since it was my movie. What are you going to do for me?
All right. Buckle up, my friend.
Yep.
We're going back to the $100,000 pyramid.
Yes. I'm in the winner's circle, so I'm going to take my seat here and put my arms into the
straps
here. Okay, I got the straps on.
All right.
And
so
remind our audience how this works.
Yep. So you're gonna have to guess 6 things. In this case, the common theme of this is I want you to identify 6 performers that were born in Australia, and all I can give you in the list is movies that they have been in. So I'm going to give you the list of the movie names. And once you think you know who the performer is, shout out their name. If you're right, we'll move on. If you're wrong, I'll give you more of the list. And if you really seem to be stuck, we'll just pass and come back to it if there's time.
Okay.
All right. You let me know. You ready here? You want to just take a quick pause? Steady yourself. Ready yourself. Okay. Ready?
I'm ready. Go.
All right. Go. The Brothers Grimm. The Patriot. Ned Kelly. A Knight's Tale. 10 Things I Hate About You.
Heath Ledger?
Yes. Mickey 17. Hereditary. Knives Out. About a Boy. Little Miss Sunshine. The Sixth Sense. Muriel's Wedding. Okay, we're going to pass on that.
Yeah.
Next one. Okay. Song Sung Blue. Les Miserables.
Hugh Jackman?
Greatest Showman. Yes! All right. Ghostbusters. Vacation. Red Dawn. Star Trek. Men in Black International. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Black Hat. The Cabin in the Woods.
Nicole Kidman?
Thor. Nope.
Chris Hemsworth?
Yes, Chris Hemsworth.
I think I know him from Thor.
All right, okay, hang on. Okay, next one. The Tailor of Panama. Quills. Les Miserables. Mystery Men. The King's Speech.
Oh.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Colin Firth?
Nope. Munich.
Bill Nighy?
Nope. Elizabeth. Shakespeare in Love. Shine.
Jeffrey Rush?
Okay, yes, Jeffrey Rush. Good job. Okay. Last one. Oh, well, last new one. Okay. Blue Jasmine. I'm Not There. Ocean's 8. The Aviator.
Is that Kate Blanchett?
Yes. Okay, back. Which one did we miss here? Okay, here we go. Hereditary. The Sixth Sense. Muriel's Wedding. Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, what's her name? Toni Collette.
Yes! Good job, buddy. Good job. Nicely done.
I think I was focused on male actors, and I just couldn't.
I knew you would be. That's why I had to make sure to throw in a few of the ladies.
And I just learned today that Toni Collette is from Australia. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because when I watch her in the things I've seen her in, she uses an American accent and everything. So
quite often she does, yeah. And believe me, when I was putting this together, I had to make sure the performers were legitimately born in Australia. You'd be shocked the number of people that you just assume, oh, well, that actor's Australian. No, they were born somewhere else, moved to Australia. And there was or they're from New Zealand, which is not Australia. So I had to make sure.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of performers got chopped right off my list right out of the bat. Wow. No, you did really good on that. So good job. It took a few of them were tough, and you got there in the end.
A couple of them I really struggled on, but we were able to pull that one out. So that's really great. I win the $100,000. That's awesome. We'll go to the movies together next week, you and I.
There you go.
It's on me. I'll buy the popcorn.
Oh, okay.
So next time that we come back, it is your turn to nominate a movie for us to watch and review. So what do you have in mind?
Well, I want to go back 15 years to a movie that at the time seemed like science fiction. And now we look back and it's almost more of a cautionary tale that nobody took seriously. And I want to watch the movie Contagion from 2011. So this is a movie about a plague, a pandemic that could affect the world. And everyone sort of went, that'll never happen. And then after COVID, people went back and watched this and went, wow, man, people were so much, they weren't freaking out nearly enough in this movie now that we've lived through this. So it's been 15 years since this movie came out. It has a huge cast of who's who in Hollywood. Again, massive movie. So let's go back and watch this. It's available on Crave. It's on Amazon Prime, but my note here says it's going to be leaving Amazon Prime in a few days. But if you got Crave or Stars with a Z, it's on there. So it's available on a few of the streamers. We're not going to be recording next week because Canada Day and 4th of July in the U.S. are both between this week and next week. We're going to take some summer holidays. Right. Absolutely. We'll come back in a couple of weeks. We'll review Contagion, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. So until then, I'm Chris McBrien. On behalf of myself and Derek Myers, we both want to say thanks for taking the time to listen to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.